Well, guys, in what seems like a throwback to the
pandemic.
we now got reports that the BBC are back running damage control for politicians.
We got a problem.
Now, for those who don't know, the BBC during Bat Flu decided to throw any illusions of impartiality out the window to run constant damage control for the government and its bullshit, or as they called it, the science.
Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations, and not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, every lie the government put out, no matter how ridiculous it was amplified and protected by the BBC, who called the truth fake news. It was literally Orwell's 1984, but it seems like the net zero nonsense is another government-run con job that the BBC must defend. Obviously, this means the right donors spent the right money on pushing this narrative like they did with COVID, but the fact they're doing it for the shitweasel Sadiq Khan shows you how deep the rot goes. This comes from an email leaked to media outlets stating that any story about Khan's ULEZ has to go through senior editors due to an ongoing complaint from Khan. So the BBC's essentially bowing to pressure from this Ponce to stop him calling out his stealth tax ULEZ scheme that will expand to eventually price people out of driving altogether. I mean, their stated goal is to get rid of private cars by 2050 because they know the planet lacks the required minerals to replace them with electric ones, plus the peasants don't need to travel, do they? This is why they want and need 15-minute cities, because if everything you require is 15 minutes away, then you don't need a car in their minds. Anyway, here you can see they write. In an email sent to staff, Dan Feynman, senior news editor at BBC South East, said, "If any platforms are doing a story on ULEZ charges in the South and South East, we now need to do a mandatory referral to Jason Horton and Robert Thompson because of an outstanding complaint with the Mayor of London, which is very live at the moment. This message was sent as an important note following an England leadership call. Jason Horton's a director of production for BBC Local Services, while Robert Thompson's the BBC senior head of content production for Eastern London. According to Mr. Cox, the member of staff who leaked the email told him it was unreal to have an edict put on us by a politician and have my bosses running scared of Khan. So you've got BBC staff saying their bosses are running scared of the mayor, which makes you question how he has so much power until you realise it's not Khan that actually has the power. No, the power comes from the net zero agenda, or should I say the people who push it on the media and then on to us. As we know, all sorts of scumbags funnel money into the corrupt mainstream media, which then dictates how they approach stories. The more money they get, the more ass they kiss when talking about whatever agenda it is the person paid them to push. This, though, to me, is just another sign that the BBC needs to be defunded and bloody sold off. It wouldn't know impartiality if it slapped him in the face and is now using taxpayers' money to run damage control for a contemptible weasel who wants to tax the public some more. Talk about taking the piss or what?
Pandemic.